Hello and welcome everybody to Flicker Effect, episode 289. And we're getting close to 300.
I mean, damn.
It is Sunday, April 7th, as we're recording this one. I'm David Lott. Joining me this episode is Bobby Jackson.
Hey, what's up, everybody?
Yasha Wilson.
Hey, everybody.
And Michelle Hillard.
Hello, hi.
What's up, guys? Plenty to talk about. Kind of had a weekend off last weekend because of WonderCon, though we did record an episode, but it was just all about WonderCon. So back to talking about movies. It was opening weekend for Shazam and Pet Sematary, so we'll be talking about that. Last weekend, Dumbo dropped, and at least I know Michelle saw that. I don't know if anyone else did, but so we'll be talking about that too. Probably some other stuff. Anyway, everyone recovered from WonderCon. We're all back to our jobs.
Back to life.
Back to real life.
WonderCon is not quite the same recovery time that it takes for San Diego Comic-Con, obviously, because it's just the 3 days, and even that Friday is truncated. But there still is a little bit of an adjustment after that Sunday to Monday, just because typically if you've been going the full weekend, there's a lot of walking around that's involved and checking out a lot of stuff, and you're staying out later maybe than normal. So there still is a slight adjustment coming back down from the WonderCon vibe, but it's absolutely not as bad as San Diego Comic-Con. I remember I used to always take a day off after Comic-Con that Monday just to be able to kind of wind down, because you would think it's 4 days or whatever of vacation and fun, but it gets hectic, and you need a day to kind of recover, let your body kind of get readjusted. Because especially back in the day when we would always kind of camp out, and you'd have those restless nights because you'd have to get up early to get back in line, and you're staying up late to start the line. So yeah, WonderCon is nowhere near as bad as recovering as it is for San Diego.
No, it's not. You're right, but
But it's.
I was just going to say I had to fly back. At least I had that, but otherwise you're right. No real recovery. What were you going to say, Yasha?
No, basically the same thing. Just kind of reiterate what Bobby said. It's like, Bobby, you're not wrong for taking that extra day when it comes to San Diego Comic-Con, because there is so much walking, there is so much to do, there is so much to see, and even after doing the whole weekend and being there and feeling like you've seen almost everything as much as you possibly can, I feel like I'm always missing something, which is like a constant feeling of like, I need to walk the floor even more. Even when you start to get familiar with it, you just have a familiarity with it, but you're still have this feeling of like, well, did I see everything? Did I get an opportunity to experience everything? Is there something that I missed? Is there some sort of a testament to like the whole experience of Comic-Con that I'm not getting, or anything like that? At least that's how I kind of feel. Which is one of the reasons why, even being a WonderCon, it's just like, okay, I'm just going to go walk the floor. I'm just going to go walk the floor. I'm going to go look around. I'm going to go walk around and do X, Y, and Z. I don't want to see this panel. But, seeing a panel is like there's an hour gone that I could have been walking the floor and missing out on something. So I totally get it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, let's jump right into it, shall we? Shazam finally dropped this weekend. There were some earlier showings, like a week or two ago? And I don't think
it was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I don't think any of us got a chance to see that. So,
the Hollywood opening premiere was while you guys were on WonderCon,
right? But yeah, those Fandango showings, I think, were the week before that. Mm-hmm. So we could have seen it earlier, but we all saw it opening weekend, I believe. And no, I don't have the Bowl of Destiny in front of me. If somebody wants me to grab it, I can.
Nah.
Or we
actually,
can.
You have it. I have it.
Oh, you have it.
Look at that.
Why don't you do the honors
Look
today?
At that. I've got it. Got the little ball right here.
Who's going to share their Shazam thoughts first?
Shazam.
Come on, Bull. What's up?
All right. It's Bobby.
Oh yes.
Okay, so Shazam.
Poor Yasha. Man, he's so happy.
All right, Bobby. So Shazam is here. Latest movie from DC. What do you think?
So Shazam was a character that I had a lot of love for growing up between the ages, I think, of probably about 10 to 13. I don't know if you guys ever remember, there was like an old TV show that was like Captain Marvel. I think, I forget what it was called, but I used to watch that. And then growing up, I started to like the comic even slightly, maybe a little bit more than Superman at the time, just because of the concept of this kid, Billy Batson, being able to turn into a superhero. I mean, the idea of it is just so well in that range of like what a kid fantasy would be. As you're a kid, you're going around the school or going around your backyard pretending you can fly and have all these superpowers. So to have a character that is actually of that age of you to be able to have this ability to turn into this superhero is such a cool thing. And I always thought it would make for such a cool movie. And then you flash forward to today where the comics have sort of changed and evolved from what it used to be back in the day. At that time, there was a lot of uh, sort of a Boy Scout, gee golly willikers, idea for the character who was very clean. I mean, he made Superman look dirty in a way just because of how clean cut he was as a character. But they updated the character back during the New 52 to where he was more the Billy Batson as a character was more rough around the edges. He was a little bit rebelled a little bit more. He wasn't so squeaky clean himself, and therefore the Shazam, or at the time, obviously Captain Marvel that he turned into, was more reflective of that, and so it is today. The movie, when they first announced Zachary Levi was going to play Shazam, to me, I was like, I could see that. It was hard to see in a physicality form, but I could see it in a mentality form because of who Zachary Levi is. And Zach Levi, he's always been someone who's sort of one of us as a geek, a person who upholds nerd culture, and he has his own Nerd HQ stuff. So it's fit right into that ability for him to be able to take on this character. And the idea of what this movie is essentially they've taken that big format and made it into a superhero. And I think I went in expecting, from based on the reviews, everyone said the movie was just a fun, entertaining movie, good for all ages kind of movie, but has some elements of darkness. And I mean, I can't dispute any of those things. To me, it was fun and it was lighthearted. It had its element of heart. Some of the things that I really liked about it was that it takes certain sort of superhero tropes when you think something's going to happen, and it kind of tweaks it or flips it a little bit to where you're like, oh, okay, I was expecting him to do this. And they kind of flipped it on its head a little bit. So that's kind of cool. And the other aspect that I liked about it is that it's steeped into this DC universe world that we've come to know, because they reference Batman and they reference Superman and other DC characters. So it feels like it's part of that world, but it's still its own thing. It's its own story, and it's not forced in there to me. It feels very organic and natural because it's a bunch of kids talking about other superheroes. So, of course, it seems natural that they would come up in conversation. And I like that idea that that world still is here, and it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere anytime soon. And it can be built upon with all these other characters that can eventually, maybe if they want to do another Justice League movie, have something very interesting there. But the character of Billy Batson is a character that I think a lot of kids would relate to today, just because, you know, he's a bit kind of standoffish. He kind of has that heart, but he doesn't really have the experience, a background to know how to effectively show that heart to other people and let other people in. So you get his story, and then obviously the aspect of Shazam is where the real fun begins, because it's the whole origin story aspect and discovering your powers and what they can do and how to do them, and there's a lot of fun in that. And I think the DC and Warner Brothers made a good choice in going this direction with the movie, because it really fits the tone of this character in today's society, and the actors who were in it, and even the best friend that was Freddie in the movie. He adds a level of entertainment and fun that you would have like as that best friend, sort of like the Genki role that's in Spider-Man, not into the Spider-Verse, but in the comic books, the best friend character that's like knows the identity, the secret identity, and is trying to get all the fun out of it, because they themselves don't have that ability. So they're like, if the roles were reversed, they'd be having a blast, but they can't. So they sort of live vicariously through that best friend that does. So I liked all elements of it, and I have maybe a few nitpicks, but aside from that, I really thought it was a fun movie, and I think it's another one that to me is solid in the entry for DC, and makes me look forward to what else comes out next.
Cool. All right. Bowl of Destiny Operator.
Bowl of Destiny Operator. That's the...
Who's next?
You are, David.
What?
You are.
I'm never letting you touch the ball again.
What? I kind of wanted to go, but...
Oh, well, you can go. We don't have to.
Oh, no. The bowl has spoken.
Oh, please. All right, I'll go.
You dare defy the Bowl of Destiny?
I don't know if I believe the bowl today. So Shazam. I've been pretty pumped about this. The more and more I've seen it leading up to the movie. I did, as we talked about on the last episode, I did watch what we were shown at WonderCon for Shazam, even though it was coming out in like a handful of days, and I was kind of torn about that. Bobby, I know you kind of looked down and resisted watching anything they showed us. But I watched it. After I watched it, I wasn't like, oh man, I feel like anything was ruined. I mean, it was what it was. And I love the movie. I thought it was really good. I really enjoyed it. My knowledge of Shazam going into it was basically based on a somewhat recent DC animated one. I forget what the name of that one was called. It came out a handful of years ago, I think. Otherwise, I never really read Shazam comics as a kid or anytime recently. But I really enjoyed the movie. You're right. It goes, sometimes it does things I didn't expect. I mean, I've got some maybe nitpicky kind of complaints about it, but overall, I really enjoyed Zachary Levi in the role as kind of expected. Based on the trailers and clips we've seen, I was pretty certain I was gonna love him in the part, and indeed he doesn't disappoint. And everyone in the movie is really good. The movie does have a lot of heart, and I'd heard that a lot before I saw it. And indeed, this story about this family he's in, I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, there's some aspects of it, like, for example, without getting into spoilers, if I do have one major problem with the movie, it's the fact that this movie, everything about the marketing of this movie, everything about the look of this movie, to me, screams a family fun, family friendly kind of film. Like
family of all ages.
Yes, pretty much all ages. Like, I definitely seriously considered taking my 7-year-old at some point to see this. I'm like, man, this really strikes me as a superhero movie he might really enjoy. I will not be taking my 7-year-old to see this movie.
Yes, it's not that family friendly.
No, it's not. And I kind of do have a problem with that. Like, this is a movie that, again, everything about the marketing of this really strikes you as like, man, this is just going to be fun and childlike. And I mean, definitely for, older audiences, but this really struck me as like, man, this is going to be a really kid friendly kind of superhero film. And no, there is definitely some dark aspects to, the villain in this movie that I was really like taken aback. I was like, wow, there's one scene in particular. I was watching it going, Jesus, like I didn't expect this kind of level of kind of darkness in this Shazam film. And that struck me as kind of odd. And I'm not that familiar, like I said, with Shazam and his villains and what kind of road you could have gone down with a villain in this other than the one they picked. But yeah, I don't know. Like that aspect of it kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But other than that, I really loved it. So, I mean, for my age, I thought it was great, but it kind of bummed me out that I'm like, oh, wow, no, a kid should be almost basically in his teens to be seeing this film, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely more of like a middle school and up kind of a thing.
All right.
Depending on your middle schooler.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So you're not saying you didn't like it or anything like that, just that you felt like it was just like, whoa, this is not exactly how I thought marketing was going with this.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's still, I don't know. I'm trying to think about how to put this in terms of like DC and Warner Brothers and how they are approaching their characters and approaching their audience. Like everything about the way they've been handling this seems like I would not have expected that kind of level of kind of darkness. I don't know. Like I'm repeating myself, but I find it weird.
But overall, you liked it.
Overall, I really liked the movie. I'm very happy with it.
Is there like a key thing that you're like, I'm a fan here. This makes me a big fan right here.
Just all the humor and, he's just a fun character. If I have another complaint, it would actually be that, yes, you're going to have a villain and you're going to have to spend time in a movie developing that character as well. But if I have another complaint, it's that I guess I wish we could have spent even more time with Billy Batson and Shazam, him just kind of learning who he is and what he can do. I think that was the most fun I had in the movie. But whenever we had to go back to, okay, so what's the villain doing? It was like it was taking time away from that. And, if I guess I wish the balance could have been a little different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But overall, I really liked it.
Cool.
All right. Who's next?
Yasha. I guess I'm going last.
Of course. How typical. So understanding that the bull would choose me next. Just kidding, Michelle. Relax.
I just kind of wanted to go. I'm kind of like, damn it.
This is the one where she actually wants to go like first. It's making her go last.
I'm like, bull.
You need to always wish to go first. That way you'll go last in the future.
Why you gotta be such a biatch?
It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. So
right.
Here we go. Like I enjoyed it. I'm with you, David. Like I think this very much earns its PG-13 rating. I don't think this is for anybody really under 10, but it is definitely junior high school level. But that being said, it was much more kid friendly than what I expected or anticipated, I guess you could say. Like I don't know why I was expecting, just kind of this cross mix. I don't know. It just seemed a little bit campier than I was expecting or really wanting it to be. But I still very much enjoyed it. Like I thought it was a very fun movie. I thought it was a very family friendly movie too. Like very geared towards, the younger market as well, with the hopes of, I think the hardcore comic fans and the fanboys and girls to come out and really support this film because it delivers. It was definitely a fun movie. Mark Strong is brilliant as Dr. Sivana. He just plays an awesome bad guy all around. Like he's just so into it. And he said that at the panel that we were into when we were watching, he actually, somebody said you deserve more roles as a good guy. And he's like, I very much enjoy playing the bad guy. Like there's something I think he gets from just sinking his teeth into those characters, and it shows. Like it was fun. It was a good movie. I really liked I thought Zachary Levi was fantastic in it. I wish we could have seen a little bit more of the playful side of Billy Batson so that we can understand why his personality was when Zachary Levi was Shazam, because we don't really learn too much about the silliness and or the childlike behavior of Billy Batson until we see him as Shazam, in my opinion. It just kind of jumps in, and then we're supposed to accept that this is the type of character that he is, and we do. But I guess that's what a little boy would realize if you had magical powers all of a sudden to turn into a superhero. But we never really get a chance, in my opinion, to see a lot of the character development of him as this young boy who likes to, be funny and pull kind of pranks and that sort of thing. We learn a little bit about it when we first. That was. Aside from that, I mean, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought the special effects were a lot of fun. I thought the fight scenes were great. I thought the ending was laugh out loud. I definitely laughed out loud at the ending and was fun to watch. And I hope that we see more of this character. I still hope we see this character kind of integrated into the DCEU, even though it just feels like they're running around over there with no formal leadership and direction as to where things are supposed to go. But I hope we do see more of this character. I hope we see more of Zachary Levi in this character, because I think it was a role that he definitely does a really good job in, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And it was just a great, a really strong family-friendly movie, but it definitely earns its PG-13 rating. There are scenes where I was like, oh shit, like I was not expecting, but it just definitely landed very well and fit right in with the realm of the characters. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
All right, Michelle, that leaves you. You finally get to go.
Gosh, okay. I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Yasha was actually just saying, but I think I might be the harder critic here on this film. I liked it. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you guys did, though. I think what Yasha was saying, I think kind of nailed it a little bit. Like, I feel like seeing Billy Batson when he was a kid was one personality, and then seeing Zachary Levi doing the Shazam portion that's still Billy Batson, I think was a whole nother personality. And I'm like, what am I missing here? Because I'm not seeing as much of the kid Billy in Shazam Billy. I'm not seeing much of the fun side of what I'm seeing on the Shazam Billy in young Billy. I'm like, there's a disconnect happening here, and I'm missing something. Like, I felt like the kid, we see him, he's not so funny. Like, he's not so like fun and like, I don't want to say chipper, but like kind of goofy-ish. Like, he just doesn't seem to have, he's very serious a lot of the time. And I get that he's, going through his thing between, running around trying to find his mother, and that's a big thing for him. But like, I don't know, I felt like I was missing it. And then he turned to Shazam, and he would just turn it into this fun, goofy little kid. And honestly, and I'm going to say this, and this is going to shock the crap out of everybody here, I thought Zachary Levi was good in this performance, but sometimes he got a little too close to the border of goofy. But not like goofy fun, but like goofy. There was moments I was like, Zach, rein it in, buddy. Rein it in. Pull it back a smidgen. Like, I think you took it almost just sometimes a little bit too far into a goofy-ish realm sometimes. Not the whole time, though. So, I don't know. Yeah, that would be my main complaint. But overall, like, I will say it's definitely much more lighthearted than the other Warner Brother films. I thought the comedy, I was kind of mixed. There was times some of the comedy I thought really hit well and I thought was really good. And there were times I thought it like Gasha said, got kind of campy sometimes. And I was kind of like, oh, I'm not feeling this so much. It seems almost a little too silly. Like, they're trying too hard to do things. But I agree. I think the villain is spectacular. I think I was surprised that they went the way they did. And I also don't know a lot about Shazam, as far like my background with Shazam is extremely limited as far as the comic goes. But I was kind of surprised that this is their first villain out the gate. And it seems to be a pretty, like, multifaceted, layered villain, obviously, which we can't talk about. But I feel like my other problem is at the end, there's this reveal. And I was like, I feel like that could have been a thing for the next movie. I really wanted to focus on this one person and not a whole. That makes sense. But I liked it. But I didn't love it, and I don't think I enjoyed it anywhere near as much as you guys did.
All right, everybody. Michelle hated it.
Yeah, if you don't love it, you hate it, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. I'm kidding, of course.
I enjoyed it.
I know.
I did not enjoy as much as I thought I was going to enjoy this film.
I will agree that about the idea of the character of Billy Batson not really feeling like he's actually the same character when he's Shazam. And I had to sort of just maybe chalk it up to the fact that when you're Shazam, you probably wouldn't act like yourself. You'd probably be more giddy and more silly or whatever the case may be. But he definitely feels more like a kid when he's Shazam than he actually feels like a kid when he's Billy Batson.
Exactly.
But one I will say who nailed it very well is a different character.
We'll talk about that later.
And I'm not gonna say anything else, but I thought they did a great job.
I will say, and this isn't a spoiler, at least I don't think it's a spoiler, I won't get into details of it, but basically like the I can't think of it now, the like little Quickie Mart store scene, which is in the trailers that they go into, and they go into a little, gas station shop, whatever. I thought that scene was great. Like from start to finish, that whole scene I thought was spot on. I was like, okay, like, and that scene alone even kind of got my hopes up a little bit. I think for the rest of the film, I was kind of like, this scene's really good. It's playing it really well. The humor's really good, and yet the seriousness is really good. Like I was like, this is okay. This scene's really, it's done really well, and I liked the way it played out. And I think that might have set me up a little further down the road for not enjoying as much.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's kind of playing into what I'm saying about like as the movie progressed, I felt like we didn't get to spend enough time with him kind of in that kind of humor area. Because, in at WonderCon, the stuff we saw was basically that scene in its entirety and stuff before that, which was, to me, a lot of the best stuff from the film. And indeed, after that, I mean, I will agree. I definitely said I love this movie. I think it's really good. My level of expectation and how I felt seeing it, it's definitely slightly lower than I was expecting. Like, after watching that stuff at WonderCon, I was just like, God damn it, this looks amazing. This looks like this is going to be a really, really fucking good movie. And I do think it's very good. But yes, if you're going to consider my expectations and how I feel afterwards, I would say I'm slightly disappointed, but I even hesitate to say that because then it probably, kind of like what you were saying, Bobby, like, if you don't love it, you hate it. Then it sounds like maybe I don't like it. And that's not the case at all. Like, I do enjoy the film, but I was pretty high up there before going into it in terms of my expectations. So that's that. If there's any disappointment, that's where it is. I will say too, real quick, we're not talking about spoilers, so obviously we're not going to talk about mid-credit scenes or after-credit scenes. But I do have a problem with the mid-credit scene, and that without talking about it, I feel like the line you have to walk when you're making a scene like this for a movie is where you want to play into stuff that the fanboys are going to go, oh my God, I know what that is. But you also want to make it, I think, entertaining for anybody. Like, for me, if you don't know what's going on, that scene is just like, what the hell is this?
I literally was like sitting there going, what the frickety frack is happening?
And that's how I am. Because since I don't know Shazam that well, I'm watching this going, what the fuck is this? Like, I was like, this is stupid.
You're not alone. You're not alone in that. Like, I mean, I'm
like, you really
pretty
just
well versed in comic books. Yeah, but I mean, you have to do research after that, because I was planning on doing that. And I have no idea what the hell that mid-credit scene was all about.
Right.
Like, the only thing that I thought was cool was, well, we'll get into that later, I'm sure. But go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to detour.
No, it's just. Yeah, you really just happen to be someone who might know what that is to go, oh my God, I know what that is. And then you would probably enjoy it. But if you don't, it's not an interesting scene. It's just like oh, okay. What's that?
The funny thing is there was a part of me that was like, oh, is this digging more into different aspects of DC? Like, for a second, I was like, is this going to be an addition in another way? Well, that's cool. And then it totally turned a corner. I went, Okay, now I'm out. I went, well, now I'm out. Okay, moving on. So
that kind of bugged me.
I agree. It got a little too fanboyish. And I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to sound like, but I was just like, yeah, there's a balance to those scenes that you need to have. Anyways.
Bobby, what was your takeaway from
it? I don't know. To me, it's comparable to Marvel in some of their mid-credits and credits, and the fact that it's sort of like a lot of people I've seen stuff for, they'll turn to question like, what was that? Or who is this? Or, and I know because I know, and I can see why other people would be thrown off. But I think if you know and you follow Shazam, then it's kind of a cool thing. But if you don't, I can understand why you'd be scratching your head like, what was that and why? So, it doesn't feel any different to me than what Marvel does with some of theirs. And even most recently with, Infinity War, when you have the Captain Marvel pager at the end, a lot of people were like, what's that for? And then you just explain it and you kind of get people hopefully hyped up for the people who do know that can explain it to the people who don't.
I don't know, though, because for me, when I've watched Marvel movies, and I'm saying this is someone, I'm not the Marvel guy, so I don't know Marvel Universe that well. There has been mid-credit scenes or after-credit scenes for Marvel movies that I also was like, I don't really know what that is, but there was something about the way the scene was done that
got you excited.
I still was excited, even though I didn't even know what I was watching, And this is, for me, did not do that. Like, this was just kind of like a major head scratcher. Like, it's not even like, oh, it's the same character. What is this? What? I don't know.
And you know what's crazy about that is, the crazy thing about that is that, Shazam is one of the older comics out there, one of the older comic books and comic stories out there. And I'll be the first to admit, when I first saw that trailer or that mid-credit scene, I was like, I had no idea what was happening. Like, I was just like, well, what is this? Like, and maybe that's, partly my fault, maybe not just being as familiar with the Shazam or that character story arc as I am with some of the Marvel story arcs. But it's like you said, David, like, even watching some of them, I may not necessarily know a lot about some of the characters, but I do know the end part of it, or those scenes always got me excited. They always had some sort of realm of a tease that really got me going. Like, I don't know much about Adam. I do know some, but at the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, when they introduced Adam, it's just like, holy shit. Like, I was super amped to see not just the character on screen, but who's going to play that character. That's immediately where I went. But with this one, I was completely just taken back. I was like, yeah, I don't really know what's going on, but okay, cool. We got this happening, so hopefully the movie does well enough that we get this greenlit for a sequel.
Yeah, I had people, in comparison to Marvel, like the two end scenes in different films that involved the Collector. Like, I had friends that were like, I don't even know what the whole Collector thing's about, but I am effing excited for whatever the hell is about to happen. I think it was the end of Thor, right? Was it Thor was the first one that had the Collector, or was it the second Thor?
I want to say the second Thor.
It was the second Thor had the Collector, and then there's the other end scene with the Collector where things blown up and what's the dog's running around, and then what's his name? The duck is
Howard the Duck.
Howard the Duck is sitting there, and again that scene, people are like, I don't really know what's happening, but man, it's awesome. Like, they were excited for it. Like, I don't even understand this whole situation with the Collector and exactly the big epic role he has to partake on this whole situation, but they were excited for it. And yeah, like this mid-grid scene, I was just kind of like, I don't know what's happening here, but okay. Anyways.
It's almost to the point of like when Stan Lee had that cameo in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, and he's talking to the Watchers. Like, you don't know who he's talking to unless you're a comic book guy. Mm-hmm. And you're a fanboy or fangirl. I guess,
right.
You can take it into contrast to that, because while those characters are minuscule to, some, they still hold a very poignant part of, the MCU and the society there with their what if stories, and just having them constantly kind of meddle with things for their own night liking and whatnot. It's, they're interesting characters, and I honestly would love to see them kind of be integrated a little bit more into the storyline, but that's neither here nor there. So just because we didn't know who it was or we weren't super excited with that one scene doesn't mean that a lot of people weren't. And that holds true when it comes to the same thing with the MCU and us knowing who the characters were and knowing what was happening. I mean, there were probably a lot of people with the Captain Marvel scene at the end of the MCU when she was being paged, or just doing that sort of thing and just making it, we're excited about it, or any other tidbits, or even when Thanos first appeared and we're all just like, holy crap, everybody's super excited. But then there are people that still didn't know who it was. I still have friends that are like, hey, who is that guy? And then I have to kind of go into it. I mean, hell, when Captain Marvel was being paged, that got me all kinds of excited and goosebumps. And I had to explain to Shannon, I was like, you don't understand. Her coming into the MCU is going to be a big deal. And she's just like, whatever. Like, I mean, it's just like, this is all just to humor and entertain you, babe. Whatever you need to do. So.
All right. Well, unless anybody has anything else they want to say about Shazam, we had another movie that came out this weekend, Pet Sematary, which I was hoping to see, but I didn't make it to a second movie this weekend. Yasha, I know you saw it, so I'm going to go to you first. What did you think of Pet Sematary?
I thought it was garbage. I almost was kind of annoyed when I walked out of the theater because I had such real high hopes for that movie. Considering that I was a fan of the first one and I kind of liked it, and I mean, the first one maybe it holds a special place for me as a child because I saw it when I was a kid. I saw it when I was a kid when I had no business watching a movie like this, and it was late at night and I was home alone. I was like, there was no reason I should be watching this bullshit, but right. I was. And so the first one I found really, really creepy. This one, I don't know if it's because I'm more apt to notifying and identifying, I should say, the first, second, and third act of a film, or how horror movies work, or the template of some of these things, or the progression of the characters. I found them corny. I found them kind of unentertaining, a little predictable in a sense, and I was all around kind of disappointed. And David, I talked to you about it the other day, and you said that you read some article that somebody said that this was the most closely adapted Stephen King novel that they've ever seen on film. I call bullshit on that because today I spent a majority of actually not the majority, but a good portion of my day looking up videos to seeing comparison and contrast to the book and the movie. And the book and the movie from the 1989 version of the film was much, much more accurate than what this bullshit was. I'm telling you, they actually have a lot of the same similarities for the older movie, but this one, they just completely went off the rails and were like, hey, we're going to do whatever the fuck we want, and this is going to be how it's going to be. And I did not like how they went at that. They did that. They took a lot of key components away from the main character, his progression into basically insanity, which ultimately to me is one of the best parts of watching a kind of a horror or psychological thriller, is watching the deterioration of our main character. And while we had that, it just wasn't there. I feel bad because it's just the movie towards the getting released, I felt like they started to kind of take off when it came to some of its advertising. Look, this isn't going to work. We've already sunk enough money into this. Let's kind of pull back on some of our advertising. And in all honesty, I just don't think that it did. I thought the movie was kind of trash. I was highly disappointed in the outcome. I was highly disappointed in the ending. And I wasn't alone in that. I was walking out of the theater and I was standing there and I was just kind of reflecting on what did I just watch. And I heard this group of people talking, and they were talking really bad about it. I was like, you guys talking about Pet Sematary? And the guy that was kind of the main person focusing on it, he was like, yeah. And I was like, well, what did you think? And he was just like, I thought it was absolute shit. He couldn't not like the movie enough. He was just like, I hated that movie on so many levels, it's not even funny. And I was like, wow. He's like, I'm a big Stephen King fan. I'm a big Stephen King nut. Huge fan of the book. Huge fan of the movie that they did back in the day. This, I don't know what the hell that was, but it wasn't it. And it just completely missed on all aspects of it. And he didn't enjoy it, and neither did any people in his group. We talked about how much we all collectively hated the movie for a second, and then we parted ways. So I guess hate is a really strong word. I've seen worse, but I just didn't really enjoy it. And like, I actually called you, David, to be like, warn you,
to
like,
warn me.
dude, don't go see this movie. Like, it's just, you save yourself some time, some hours, like knowing you as a person and a guy and like what you guys enjoy now and what you're really into. I mean, you're going to want to make your own critique of this film, but just knowing you, I don't think you're going to like it. I think you're going to get incredibly pissed off when you watch it, and you're going to like lose interest about 3/4 of the way through. And the ending is going to really fucking make you mad. Like, it's just going to really piss you off. So, I mean, hey, man, you want to go see it? I would love to hear your response for it. But I don't think you're going to be pleased with the outcome.
Well, and it's interesting that, you called me to warn me, to almost tell me, like, don't waste your time, don't see this. But your level of, like, anger about the movie actually makes me want to see it even more, just because I want to see if I fall in line with what you're thinking, or if I'm like, oh my God, Yashel, you're out of your mind. This was amazing. Like, I now I'm really curious to see it. I mean, I'm definitely probably going into it a little more concerned. Like, oh man, I'm curious to see it, but I have a bad feeling about this now. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm probably still going to see this now just because I want to see where I fall.
You know what? I'm genuinely surprised that it's rating so high on Pet Sematary. Like, yeah, 61% fresh. I mean, if there isn't a bigger load of shit than I can possibly like rate, like, I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, 60% of the people rated this movie as fresh. Oh man, go to hell. Like, I'm sorry. Like, and that's nothing against Jason Clarke. I like Jason Clarke. I love John Lithgow. But I watched this movie and I'm just like, I'm like annoyed at the fact that people put this. And then these are the same people that, like, on a movie that's just almost impeccable from start to finish, like Godfather 2, they're like, I don't know, does the guy have to talk so much with like cotton balls in his mouth? Or like, all right, so The Dark Knight, does the Joker have to laugh at everything? Like, something stupid like that. It's just like, you have these people that like just go against the grain just to go against the grain. But like, for whatever reason, they want to rate Pet Sematary like a completely leaving the traditional aspect of what the story was. Like, after reading and watching a little bit more of what this, the original book was like, this is so far from what the original book was. It's just not even funny. Anyways.
All right.
I'm done. I'm sorry. I kind of went off on a tangent.
No, you're good.
It's not. It's like that. I'm just like, okay. I hated the movie because it's like I said, there was definitely others that I didn't enjoy more. I just found this one to be like, this is bullshit. Like, this is unbelievably predictable and corny and campy, and it's like, it doesn't even ring kind of close to accurate as to like what I was expecting from a remake of a movie or continuation of a storyline or anything like that. It's just kind of like, oh, all right. So that's what we're doing. Honestly, I can't wait to see Honest Trailers rip this movie to shreds. I really can't, like, because they're going to. They probably have watched it and they're just like, oh, I call bullshit. Like, so anyways.
So what was that, Michelle?
I'm done.
I was going to say, if anything, hearing his review of this kind of pisses me off on a few other levels. Like, so, I mean, our movie theater put Pet Sematary in the Dolby Digital and not Shazam.
What in the F?
Please explain to me why the F Pet Sematary needs to be in Dolby and Shazam doesn't? Excuse me, what?
There's no reason.
And so now to hear that movie was horrible makes me even more pissed off because, and again, like, we saw it in the Limax theater and it was fine, but I would have liked to have watched Shazam in the Dolby. I'm spoiled now. I have expectations for my comic book movies and I want them in my Dolby.
I want them in my Dolby.
I want them in my Dolby cinema. Dang it. And so the fact that Pet Sematary won that coin toss really kind of pisses me off. And now it really pisses me off because it's a shitty movie, apparently. So
by the way, speaking of Rotten Tomatoes, the critics' consensus, I've never seen a shorter critics' consensus ever. Like, it is 4 words. And because, I mean, it is, like you said, 61%. All the consensus says is sometimes remade is better. That's it. I'm like,
really?
No, what? No, like, seriously? Like, is that on Rotten Tomatoes?
Yeah, that's right. That's the Rotten Tomatoes critics' consensus.
Oh my gosh.
So, Bobby, did you see this?
Yeah, I did.
All right. So,
Like, Bobby, tell me, like, what?
I fear for
I'm
you,
dying
Bobby,
to
if you
hear.
like this movie.
Wait, what'd you say, David?
And I was just saying, I fear for your friendship with Yasha if you liked it. So, like,
I didn't have as strong as reaction to the movie as Yasha did. I don't know. Maybe he went in with super high expectations and whatnot, but I thought it was fine. It's whatever. I think this movie is for people who didn't watch the 80s movie and don't really know the story, and they'll go in and they'll probably get some good scares, and they'll have something interesting to talk about because the concept is interesting, and it has some uh, things that if they did adhere closer to the book that I'm not familiar with, I haven't read the book, then I can see it being a little bit more of an update to the original version because the spirit of it is still there. It's just that for me, I think that knowing the original and having seen it so many times, that even though they do some new things in this one, as I said, the spirit of it is still there. So there's nothing really, so I guess nothing really seriously new there. It's still some certain aspects that are the same, and some things that did change. I still don't know how I feel about them changing it from what I knew of the old movie, but I don't knock them for trying something different as well. I think my biggest problem with the movie is that I didn't feel any kind of connection with any of the characters. Everything felt very hollow. Um, the acting is fine for the most part. It's just that there's nothing really there to make you care for these characters and their journey. I just didn't really feel for them in any sort of way, and I think that's important for this kind of movie because uh, if you get that right, everything that happens after a certain point, it really would connect with you in a way that feels so messed up and so crazy. But I never kind of got that from this movie, and it's unfortunate. Basically, I just think that if the characters had a little bit more to them, a little more maybe getting to know them a little bit more in some way, it would have felt a little bit better. Yeah, like I said, it's fine for people who maybe have never seen the first one and want to check this out. And for people who have seen it, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that I would say you need to rush out and go see this one because of the general vibe I got from it. But I would say if you are wanting to see a horror film that's out right now, then sure, why not? Go ahead and check it out.
I was about to start telling Bobby over the when we lost you for a second there is just like maybe my visceral reaction is just a little bit much, but it's like or maybe I'm just a little too attached to what the original was. I just like I think he hit it mostly on the button when he said I just wasn't connected to the characters, because that's a big one. Like if you're not attached to these characters that are going through these issues and going through these problems and being attacked or anything like that, if you don't feel anything, there's no empathy. It's kind of like, okay, you're just watching kind of like a blood fest or whatever the case may be, but it's just kind of like you're just waiting for it to happen because it's going to happen. So I guess, that's maybe more where I stand, is like I just didn't find caring all that much. And like I said, it's nothing against some of the actors. I think there's some and they're like, I really enjoy Justin Clark's work. Like I love John Lithgow. Amy Seimetz, not super familiar with her. She looked really familiar, but I'm trying to remember what I've seen her in. But aside from that, I mean, the movie was just kind of like, oh, whatever. Like I didn't find it all that entertaining. I thought it was kind of, bad, but I mean, maybe I'm just being overly critical of it as of right now, but that's just kind of how I feel.
Right. I will say real quick. So I've read a lot of Stephen King books. Actually, one of the authors I've read more of than most, and I've never been a big book reader, sadly, but I've definitely read a few, and I've seen a lot of Stephen King movies. For whatever reason, Pet Sematary, I never saw that original film. I never read that book, and I've actually basically stayed away from any knowledge, not on purpose. It's just I've never really found out anything about how that movie or book is. I didn't really know anything about it. So when we first got like the first teaser for this, it doesn't really give a lot of detail about the plot, just that, oh, these people are moving into a house and there's like a pet cemetery nearby and it's something funky about it. Like, that's really all you get from that teaser. That's really all I knew about the movie. So I think it was before a showing of something recently where I finally saw the full-length trailer for this version of Pet Sematary that definitely reveals a lot more about what's going on in the story. And I didn't know any of that. And I was watching that trailer going, damn it. I think it would have been kind of nice to go see this movie not knowing any of this. Like, I did not know this aspect of the story at all. And
that's too bad.
I wish I could have seen it not knowing that, but it's too late now. Like, now I know.
I had heard that about the second trailer and I had avoided it, even though I've seen the movie, but I knew something was different because I heard people saying the second trailer spoils this thing. And to me, the way they were sort of dancing around it meant it wasn't what I was thinking and that it was something else. So when I'm watching the movie and knowing that certain things are starting to happen, then I figured it out pretty quickly what must have happened in the trailer. And I was like, wow, they showed that in the trailer? This is the main reason why I started avoiding second trailers and stuff, because they can't help themselves but to give stuff away these days, it seems like. So I just only had watched that first trailer and stayed away from the others.
Yeah, it's too bad, because for me, even that first teaser trailer, I thought it was well done as trailers goes, and that it gives you this eerie kind of just feeling, and like the atmosphere of this movie is going to be creepy just in and of itself. Like, that's really all I needed. And I guess I get that from a studio perspective, they don't feel like that's what everybody needs to go see a movie, but I don't know. I feel like that teaser worked. And even if you made a longer trailer that still just kind of played on that, I feel like that would have been enough.
No, you're wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, the first trailer was plenty. Like, them doing anything else after that was kind of overkill, especially when it comes to a movie like this. Especially when it comes to a movie like this and what they're released. And they should have honestly just gone with the name. And when I say the name, I mean Stephen King.
Right.
Stephen King's Pet Sematary. They should have just gone with that. He has a name and is a big enough icon to basically carry a movie at this point. Right. Like, let's just be real. He really is. Stephen King's blah, blah, blah. I mean, you don't have to say anything else other than that. It's just, okay, yeah, let's go see this.
Right. All right. Well, last weekend, Dumbo dropped while we were at WonderCon. Michelle, you saw Dumbo.
I did.
What did you think of the most recent Disney live action adaptation?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest. I feel like I've been a pretty tough critic of the live actions from Disney, and there've been some hit and misses, I think. And I went into this one kind of going, okay, I'm hopeful here, but I'm skeptical. And like, I grew up, I really liked Dumbo when I was a kid. I enjoyed watching it. And then, as I got a little older, I'd watch Dumbo and it'd make me cry, but I still liked it. And I admit there are a lot of issues that in today's environment are really wrong with that film. And I fully acknowledge that. But it's still kind of a classic film. At the time it was done, things were what they were, unfortunately. And it's just kind of how it is. But now we have a way we can kind of not rewrite the story, but make it a little more understandable, I think. Anyways, so I went into this one kind of going, oh, we'll see. But I think my big thing was Tim Burton being the director. I was like, okay, Tim, like, you haven't been doing great with me lately. And I feel really sad because it's like I want you to have kind of a revival again. And maybe getting back to your roots. I will say, watching Dumbo, I was pleasantly surprised with this one. I enjoyed it a lot. There's visually, it kind of is a return to Tim's roots, and I think I enjoy it, and I enjoy the storytelling and the way it was unfolding and the way it was done. But I can see other people having some issues with this film for that. Basically, and I won't go into spoilers, but most of the film, the first half of the film is done in a way that reminds me a lot of the way Tim did Big Fish visually, and even just kind of the feel of it is this kind of like childlike magic, but it was also kind of like softened. And then the second half of the film is a serious return to themes I think you'd pick up on from visually the way Batman was and the way that Beetlejuice is done, and it harkens back to an aesthetic that is very true to Tim, and I really liked it a lot for a number of things. But I like the story. It holds true to the way the original film was, but obviously this is a major motion picture, so they really had to bulk up the storyline, and I think they did a really good job of it, because it easily could have been well, what's going to happen here? What's going to be so entertaining? And they found a way to make the story of Dumbo a little bit heftier and in a really good way. And it's got a lot of heart to it. And I think the characters are written really well. I think the actors did a really great job. I was very, very impressed. And you know me, unfortunately, I cried everything. I cried 2, damn near 3 times in this film. It was rough. Like, I was having a hard time. It was good though. I'm very impressed with Dumbo, and I think if you haven't taken your family or kids or even a good little date night, it's a good one. I liked it a lot, and I don't know how anybody could look at and I acknowledge like that it's a computer generated thing, but how could you look at Dumbo's face and his eyes and not just be like, well, he is the best thing in the entire universe. Who could not love this creature? Like, it's just so good and so heartwarming, and I'm surprised I enjoyed it as much as I did. It surprised me, quite honestly. So, that's
Nice.
what I would say.
That's good to hear.
Wow, cool. That is very good to hear.
And that's definitely key, the animation of Dumbo, especially when you're trying to get that kind of emotional reaction, I think, out of your audience. Like the animation of that kind of computer character.
His big blue eyes.
You could really screw that up.
Yeah, I mean, they could have made, because Dumbo has these huge big blue eyes, and it could have looked cheesy, and it didn't. It looked totally natural for this creature, this elephant, to look the way he did, even with his big Dumbo ears. Like, everything was just done really, really well. I have to applaud Disney on this one, and Tim Burton. I think this was a good one, and the music's really good in it too. The score I thoroughly enjoyed. Not surprising. I mean, like, it's.
Did Elfman score that?
I think he did, and it's a solid for me. I was impressed, and I did not think I was going to be impressed with this one at all, but I recommend it. Like, you can't take your young kids to go see Shazam. Go see Dumbo, guys. It's all good.
Michelle, I went a completely different direction. I'm not gonna lie. I thought you were gonna start off with this sort of review, and then basically just it wasn't going to meet your expectations. And that is very promising, and I'm excited to see. Like, I really want to see it.
I recommend it. It was enjoyable. I was surprisingly very pleased with this one. I left just kind of going, wow, that could have gone a whole nother way, but that was good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode. As always, we'd love to hear back from everyone listening. You can email us at feedback@flickereffect.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Twitter at @Flicker_effect, and go check out our YouTube page, youtube.com/Flicker Effect. We've got some content going up on YouTube from WonderCon. Bobby has an interview up there right now with the head of content over at Legion M. So yeah, go check that out. And with that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Bobby Jackson.
I'm Yasha Wilson.
And I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.